Welcome to UBI Unplugged, breaking down the future of income. Glad to be back with you all today, ready to dive into some potentially contentious but ultimately hopeful discussions.
Hopeful is a strong word. Skeptical is probably more where I'm at. But hey, always willing to be proven wrong. We'll see what the data says, right?
Data is key, absolutely. But also, acknowledging the human element. We're talking about people's lives, not just numbers on a spreadsheet. Good to be here.
Exactly. And that's why I think this whole UBI conversation is so important. It's not just about economics, it's about human dignity, opportunity, and creating a more just society.
Easier said than done. I'm still trying to wrap my head around the actual feasibility of it all. I mean, where does the money come from, really? And what about inflation? Doesn't that just negate any benefit?
Those are definitely the million-dollar questions, or maybe the trillion-dollar questions. But I think we need to frame the conversation correctly. It's not just about giving people free money, it's about rethinking our social safety net and investing in human capital.
Yes, and it's about unlocking potential. Think about all the innovation that's being stifled because people are stuck in dead-end jobs just trying to survive. A UBI gives people the freedom to pursue their passions, to start businesses, to contribute to their communities in ways they can't right now.
But what if they just don't? What if they just sit at home and watch TV all day? I mean, human nature being what it is.
There's always going to be a percentage of people who do that, sure. But the evidence from pilot programs suggests that's not the norm. People, for the most part, want to be productive, they want to contribute. A UBI just gives them the opportunity to do it on their own terms.
Exactly. And think about the long-term societal benefits: reduce crime, improve mental health, increase civic engagement. The list goes on. It's an investment in our future, not just a handout.
Okay, I hear you. But let's talk specifics. How does this UBI thing intersect with healthcare, particularly personalized medicine? That's what we're supposed to be digging into today, right?
Right? And that's where things get really interesting and complex. Personalized medicine, with its promise of tailored treatments based on individual genetic profiles and lifestyles, has the potential to revolutionize healthcare. But it's also incredibly expensive, at least right now.
And that's where UBI comes in. Imagine a future where everyone has the financial security to access preventative care, genetic testing, and personalized treatments. It could dramatically reduce healthcare costs in the long run by catching diseases early and preventing them from becoming chronic conditions.
So you're saying UBI could democratize access to personalized medicine? That's actually a pretty compelling argument. But how would that work in practice? Would the UBI cover the cost of genetic testing and personalized treatments directly? Or would it just give people more disposable income to spend on healthcare?
It's likely a combination of both. The UBI provides a baseline level of financial security, allowing people to afford basic healthcare needs. But we might also need to consider targeted subsidies or vouchers for specific personalized medicine services, especially for low-income individuals.
Think about it this way. Right now, access to cutting-edge treatments is largely determined by your socioeconomic status. If you're wealthy, you can afford the best doctors, the latest therapies, the most advanced genetic testing. But if you're poor, you're often stuck with whatever the public healthcare system provides, which may not be the most personalized or effective treatment.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Healthcare inequality is a huge problem. I'm just not convinced that UBI is the silver bullet to solve it.
It's not a silver bullet, no. It's one piece of a much larger puzzle. We also need to address issues like healthcare infrastructure, workforce shortages, and regulatory barriers to innovation.
But it's a crucial piece, and think about the potential impact on the pharmaceutical industry. Right now, Big Pharma is incentivized to develop blockbuster drugs that can be sold to as many people as possible, regardless of whether they're the most effective treatment for each individual.
Oh, here we go. Big pharma bashing.
Not bashing, just pointing out the economic realities. In a UBI-enabled future with more people having access to personalized medicine, the incentive structure would shift. Pharma companies would need to focus on developing targeted therapies that are tailored to individual needs rather than mass market drugs.
That's a really interesting point. It could actually drive innovation and lead to more effective treatments, because companies would be forced to compete on quality and efficacy rather than just marketing and scale.
Okay, I see where you're going with that. But wouldn't that also make drugs even more expensive? I mean, developing personalized therapies is going to be inherently more costly than developing mass market drugs, right?
Potentially, yes. But the cost could be offset by the fact that these therapies would be more effective, leading to fewer hospitalizations, fewer side effects, and a better quality of life for patients. And of course, with UBI, people would have more financial resources to afford these treatments.
Exactly. And think about the potential for preventative care. With UBI, people would be more likely to invest in their health up front, getting regular checkups, screenings, and genetic testing. This could prevent diseases from developing in the first place, saving even more money in the long run.
Okay, I'm starting to see the potential benefits. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. There are still a lot of challenges to overcome. What about the ethical implications of personalized medicine? What about privacy concerns related to genetic data?
Those are crucial considerations. We need to have robust data privacy laws in place to protect people's genetic information from being used in discriminatory ways. And we need to ensure that personalized medicine is used ethically and responsibly, not to create a genetic underclass.
Absolutely. And we need to address the potential for bias in algorithms and AI systems that are used to analyze genetic data. If these systems are trained on biased data sets, they could perpetuate existing health disparities.
So basically, we're talking about a massive regulatory overhaul to make all of this work. That sounds complicated.
It is complicated, but it's also necessary. We need to create a regulatory framework that fosters innovation while protecting people's rights and ensuring equitable access to personalized medicine.
And we need to involve the public in this conversation. People need to understand the potential benefits and risks of personalized medicine, and they need to have a voice in shaping the policies that govern its use.
Okay, so UBI plus personalized medicine equals a potential healthcare revolution, but with a whole lot of asterisks and caveats. Got it.
Precisely. It's a vision of the future that's worth striving for, but we need to be realistic about the challenges and complexities involved.
And we need to start experimenting with UBI pilot programs to gather more data and refine our understanding of its potential impact. There are a few cities already running small-scale programs.
Speaking of data, I saw an interesting article the other day about how some Trump voters are feeling betrayed by his economic policies. They thought he was going to bring back jobs and prosperity, but they're still struggling. It makes you wonder if UBI is just another empty promise.
That's a valid concern, and it highlights the importance of being honest with people about the limitations of any policy proposal. UBI is not a magic wand, and it's not going to solve all of our economic problems overnight.
But it could provide a much-needed safety net for those who are struggling, and it could empower them to take control of their lives and build a better future. I feel like the frustration expressed by those voters highlights the need for direct economic support. They were promised something that didn't materialize, and that breeds resentment.
Yeah, but the article also pointed out that Congress is so dysfunctional that it's hard to get anything done. If we can't even pass basic legislation, how are we going to implement a complex program like UBI?
That's a huge obstacle, no doubt, and it underscores the need for bipartisan support. UBI shouldn't be a partisan issue. It should be seen as a common sense solution to address economic inequality and improve people's lives.
Maybe UBI could actually bypass some of the political dysfunction. If people are receiving direct payments, they're less reliant on government programs that are subject to political wrangling.
That's an interesting thought. But what about the potential for political opposition to UBI? I can imagine a lot of politicians being resistant to the idea of giving people free money.
There will definitely be opposition, but we need to frame the conversation in a way that appeals to a broad range of voters. We need to emphasize the economic benefits of UBI, the potential for reduced crime and improved health, and the fact that it's an investment in our future.
And we need to show that UBI is not just a handout, but a way to empower people and unlock their potential. It's about giving people the freedom to pursue their dreams and contribute to their communities in meaningful ways.
Okay, you're starting to win me over. But I still have a lot of questions. What about the impact on the labor market? Won't people just stop working if they're getting a UBI?
The evidence from pilot programs suggests that's not the case. People may work fewer hours, but they don't stop working altogether. They often use the extra time to pursue education, start businesses, or care for their families.
And think about the kinds of jobs that people would be freed up from. Tedious, low-paying jobs that are often automated anyway. UBI could help people transition to new careers in growing industries.
So UBI is a tool for workforce retraining. That's actually a pretty smart idea.
Exactly. It's about investing in people's skills and helping them adapt to the changing economy. And if there is an effective job skills training program that accompanies UBI, its efficacy would be much higher.
And think about the economic stimulus that UBI could provide. People would have more money to spend, which would boost demand and create jobs.
But wouldn't that also lead to inflation? I mean, more money chasing the same amount of goods.
That's a valid concern. But the inflationary impact of UBI could be mitigated by increasing productivity and expanding the supply of goods and services. Also, if the program is managed in a responsible manner.
And by taxing the wealthy to fund the UBI, that would help to redistribute wealth and reduce income inequality.
So now we're talking about wealth redistribution. That's a whole different can of worms.
It's all connected, though. Income inequality is a major driver of economic instability and social unrest. UBI is one tool to address that inequality and create a more just and equitable society.
And think about the long-term benefits of a more equitable society. Reduced crime, improved health, increased civic engagement. The list goes on. It's an investment in our collective future.
Okay, I'm starting to see the bigger picture. But I still have a lot of doubts. I'm just not sure if UBI is the right solution. It seems like a very complex and expensive undertaking.
It is complex and expensive, but the cost of doing nothing is even greater. The cost of poverty, inequality, and social unrest is far higher than the cost of implementing a UBI.
And the potential benefits are enormous. A more just, equitable, and prosperous society for all. That's a future worth striving for.
All right. You've given me a lot to think about. I'm still not completely convinced, but I'm more open to the idea than I was before. I still have that gut level reaction that feels like a UBI system is going to be corrupted and gamed by people, but I cannot deny that there is something appealing about trying it.
That's all we can ask for. It's a conversation that needs to continue, and we need to be willing to consider all the evidence and arguments, even the ones that challenge our own beliefs. It's always worth trying to find better systems.
Exactly. And we need to remember that we're talking about people's lives, not just numbers on a spreadsheet. We have a moral obligation to create a society where everyone has the opportunity to thrive.
So UBI and personalized medicine, a potentially revolutionary combination, but with a whole lot of ifs, ands, and buts. That's my takeaway.
A fair assessment. It's a vision of the future that's worth exploring, but we need to proceed with caution and a healthy dose of skepticism.
And a healthy dose of hope. We have the power to create a better world, but we need to be willing to think big and take bold action.
Well, I'm definitely thinking big after this conversation. My head is spinning. I still feel like the government is often inept at large-scale problems, but there seems to be enough potential here to take this topic very seriously.
It's a lot to digest, for sure. And the devil is always in the details when it comes to policy implementation. But the potential rewards are so great that it's worth the effort.
I agree. The potential to alleviate suffering, unlock human potential, and create a more just and equitable society is simply too great to ignore. And in the scope of potential positive change, a few potential stumbling blocks shouldn't keep us from advancing.
So, what news stories caught your eye this week that might be relevant to our discussion?
I was particularly struck by the reports of immigration sweeps in Tennessee, targeting communities of color. It just highlights the vulnerability of marginalized groups and the need for stronger social safety nets.
Absolutely. The fact that people are being arrested and deported based on minor traffic violations is deeply disturbing, and it underscores the importance of UBI as a way to provide a safety net for vulnerable populations, regardless of their immigration status. It would also provide a sense of stability to those communities in targeted cities.
I saw that article too. The Highway Patrol claiming they're taking dangerous elements off the street seems like a pretty convenient justification for what looks like racial profiling to me. But if they truly are dangerous, is UBI a solution?
It's definitely a slippery slope, and it raises questions about how we define dangerous elements and whether we're using law enforcement to address social problems that are rooted in economic inequality. The stated criteria needs to be better assessed. Was this simply pretext to targeting based on ethnicity?
And it diverts resources and attention from addressing the root causes of economic disparity. Instead of focusing on immigration enforcement, we should be investing in education, job training, and affordable housing. We should also be assessing the disproportionate impact on communities of color in areas with large immigrant populations.
But wouldn't a UBI program be difficult to implement for immigrants, especially those who are undocumented? There would be potential conflicts with existing social safety nets.
That's a complex issue for sure. But there are ways to design a UBI program that specifically addresses the economic vulnerability of immigrants, while also ensuring that it doesn't create unintended consequences.
And we need to remember that immigrants are a vital part of our economy. They contribute to our communities in countless ways, and they deserve to be treated with dignity and respect. Also, that UBI could stabilize some of the turmoil and fear that are created during these raids.
That's true. But I still worry about the potential for fraud and abuse. It seems like there would be a lot of opportunities for people to game the system.
That's a legitimate concern. But there are ways to design a UBI program that minimizes the risk of fraud and abuse. We can use technology to verify identities and track payments, and we can implement strong oversight mechanisms. We can never allow fraud to exist, of course.
And we need to remember that the vast majority of people are honest and hardworking. We shouldn't let the fear of a few bad actors prevent us from implementing a program that could benefit millions of people.
Okay, I hear you. But what about the cost? Where is all this money going to come from? I mean, we're talking about trillions of dollars.
There are a number of ways to finance a UBI program. We could raise taxes on the wealthy, we could cut wasteful government spending, or we could implement a carbon tax. There are a lot of potential revenue sources.
And we need to remember that UBI is an investment in our future. It's not just about giving people money. It's about creating a more just equitable and prosperous society for all. In the long term, it will pay for itself.
That's a pretty optimistic view. I'm not sure I share it, but I'm willing to keep an open mind and see what the evidence shows.
That's all we can ask for. The debate over UBI is just beginning, and it's going to be a long and complex process. But it's a conversation that's worth having, because the stakes are so high.
Absolutely. And we need to involve everyone in this conversation, not just economists and policymakers. We need to hear from the people who would be most affected by UBI, the people who are struggling to make ends meet and build a better future for themselves and their families.
Okay, so UBI, a potential solution to a lot of our problems, but with a whole lot of challenges and complexities to overcome. Got it.
Exactly. It's a vision of the future that's worth striving for, but we need to be realistic about the obstacles and the potential pitfalls.
And we need to be willing to experiment and learn from our mistakes. UBI is not a one-size-fits-all solution, and we need to be flexible and adaptable as we implement it.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for the enlightening conversation. I'm still not sure if I'm a UBI convert, but I'm definitely thinking about it a lot more seriously now.
My pleasure. It's always good to have these kinds of discussions, even when we disagree. It helps us to refine our thinking and come up with better solutions.
Absolutely. And thanks to everyone for listening. We hope you found this conversation informative and thought-provoking. Until next time, keep exploring the future of income.